Dear Muse, my New Year's resolution was to write a story and get it published for the end of the year. It's December and I've only written 8 chapters of it. The worst part of it all was this is my 3rd year to have this resolution, but I still couldn't make it. It's not like I didn't try. I've done lots of research, rewritten 5 chapters, and plotted an entire new story which I've archived for next year. I'm told by other writers it's easy to just focus on a terrible first draft and that they could do it in 4 months. Obviously, I'm not very good at it, so what's the point? Am I a failed writer? You're not a failed writer, and that's coming from someone who had a 15-year hiatus from writing. But before we move forward, let's take a deep breath, unclench our jaw, roll our shoulders back, let them fall as they may, and let's get right into it. Ask yourself honestly, would I call someone a failure if they were in the exact situation as I am, or would I encourage them to write their heart out? Feeling like a failure doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you are measuring yourself up against something, whether that is a version of success or an expectation in which you decided you don't match up to it. This feeling often shows up when your progress is feeling slower than what you would expect. It could also be that the effort that you've put in is still not showing any results. It could also be your focus is split between different priorities and you feel guilty for not putting in the time needed towards your writing and your story. Or it could just be that you care deeply and you don't know if it's going to pay off, and that scares you. Could also be all of it combined. Feeling like a failure isn't a fact. If anything, it is your villain, that little critic voice in your head, telling you a story to believe in by using all of your insecurities, bringing your deepest fears to life, and preventing you from achieving your dreams. And like most stories, it feels real because it's emotional. The only way that you can fail is if you quit. And if you quit, then that's villain 1 and you 0. I want you to sit with this question for a moment. What line did I cross that made me feel like a failure? And who drew that line? Was it a timeline created by successful writers? Was it social media defining what a successful writer is? Was it your family? Were you actually told what makes a successful writer, or are you absorbing a definition and using it against yourself? That line was drawn because it came from the pressure to succeed, or we felt guilty for resting, or we compared ourselves to others, or we internalized an unrealistic expectation, or there's a fear of running out of time, or fearing that there is no results at the end of the road, or even being praised for potential instead of being praised for the progress that is done. Many of us were taught that effort only matters if it leads somewhere impressive. So when the results aren't visible to us, our brain fills in the gap with blame. And as a writer, that blame hits harder because our writing can feel invisible. We work in solitude, in our own creative chaos, and with an idea that we're trying so desperately bring to life, especially if you're one of those writers who sees their stories play out like a movie in their head, and they're trying so desperately to figure out which words describe what they're seeing and how to bring that scene to life. The point is, you can spend years learning, growing, experimenting as a writer, but to the outside perspective, it looks like nothing has happened. But that doesn't mean that you failed. It means you are in progress. For me, I went 8 years without writing. I believe that I failed as a writer and chose the option B path of I quit, there's no point. Did I regret doing that? absolutely I regretted doing that. I spent every day thinking, what if I didn't quit? What if I had spent all that time writing? Where would I be today? And all those thoughts stopped me from writing because I've wasted so much time. But am I a failure? No, absolutely not. Not anymore, because I'm writing again. And despite that voice in my head saying, well, what's the point? What's the point? You've wasted so much time. I love telling stories. I love writing. I love trying to bring the stories to life through my writing. And I have a dream of writing a book and sharing it with the world. And even if that story flops, if it's a story that I'm proud of writing, then that's all that matters. And in the end, I didn't waste those 8 years. I spent those 8 years plotting in my head of where my story could be. And, I still took little notes here and there in my very real notebook addiction that was still going on during those 8 years. But the point is that I spent those 8 years growing and learning who I am as a person and who I am as a writer and what it is that I wanted to become in 5-10 years from now. So yes, villain, you're absolutely right. I did wasted 8 years of not writing. But you're also absolutely wrong, because I spent those 8 years growing, and that's all that matters. When you're in that moment feeling like a failure, say to yourself, louder than the villain's voice in your head, that failure is not falling short. Failure is giving up what matters to you, and you refuse to give up on this matter because it's important to you. Struggling is not a failure. Taking time for yourself or for the responsibilities outside of writing is not a failure. Changing directions in the middle of a story is not a failure. Taking time to learn your craft and who you are as a writer does not make you a failure. The writing process, whether you're at the start of it, outlining your story, or you've started your first draft, you're in the middle of it, you're done, and you've been editing over and over and over again, it feels awful. It feels like you are a failure because you've done so much work and you still don't see the end result. You still see no proof, you have no closure or no payoff. But that's because you are unfinished. You're not unsuccessful, you're just unfinished. So what? It's not ready. Your story needs more of your attention, and one day you'll look at it and you'll say, that'll do. That'll be good. I'm done. And thus, your story is complete, and there is your payoff. Instead of asking yourself, why am I a failure, or if I'm failing, ask yourself, what is it that I have left to build? And here's a few reminders. Progress isn't always visible. Being unfinished doesn't make me a failure, and I'm allowed to grow without there being any results. And if you like journaling, and as a writer, I highly do recommend it. It's a great way to get ideas for internal struggles for your characters. Here's a reflection question for the week. What part of my writing journey am I judging because it isn't completed yet, and why? You don't need to solve it. You just need to notice it and write it down. Feeling like a failure is often because you care so deeply about something that just isn't done yet. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be feeling this way. And just because you're feeling like a failure doesn't mean that you are one. It just means that you're a little bit impatient with yourself. And that's okay, because writing is a huge project, a project that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of self-discovery of who you are as a writer. Remember, you're doing better than you think, and we'll just take this one breath, one word, and one draft at a time. This was Dear Muse, and if you're struggling to write, leave a comment with the hashtag Dear Muse, and maybe your question will be in a future episode. Or, buy a new notebook. Hey, have you seen the very first episode of Writing Sucks But I Love It called Notebooks Addictions? You have? This is the notebook. Isn't it a pretty notebook? Still smells like a fresh notebook after all these years. Totally